It's Italian tradition. This story takes place during the week my wife and I got married. I was 28 at the time. We had a destination wedding in the Bahamas, and it was amazing. We had 15 people able to join us. We had picked Bahamas as it was the first place my wife ever did a vacation to, and it's where I proposed to her. So for us, the week was pure magic. Now on to the story of my mother. I would write about her antics during the whole week, but I don't think people want to read a book, so I'll only talk about the wedding day itself. It's Wednesday, middle of our trip. Both me and my wife wanted to follow the don't see each other before the wedding rule. We've gotten some flack for it, but whatever. We were getting married off the resort in a small blue church in a nature sanctuary. I was to go first and my wife would follow. While waiting on the rides for me, my best man, and our guests, my mom kept saying things. It's Italian tradition for the mother to take photos with the groom before the wedding. It's Italian tradition for the mother to take photos with the best man and guests. This was getting annoying, but then my mother pulls me aside and starts to have a heart-to-heart talk to me, which I thought was going to go one way. It was basically a lecture about how important she is and how selfish I was. She ended it with it's also Italian tradition to wear these cufflinks. I was expecting cufflinks from that my grandpa wore at his wedding. I respected him greatly. He was a huge influence in my life. She pulls out these dollar store cufflinks and kept trying to pass them off as a family heirloom. I later found out that she had bought them in Bahamas as an impulse buy. Also, my suit wasn't made with cufflinks in mind. Anyways, as the rides show up, my mother tells me, oh, don't forget, it's Italian tradition for the mother to walk to the son down the aisle. Everyone looked at her like she was crazy, cause even my dumbass knows that's not a tradition anywhere. I called her out on that and she starts arguing with me. She sort relents and tells me, well, if you're going to break your mother's heart, at least follow the Italian tradition of making your brother the usher. I told her that like only 6 people were coming with me, but fine, whatever. We finally leave, my mother staying behind to stay with the bride's side. Lord knows what app she tried to pull with her. We get to the nature sanctuary and go to the small blue church that can hold maybe 40 people. Everyone just sits where they want, and my brother stands by the door. Now, my wife's maid of honor is her best friend and she's a sickening amazing person. Honestly, she's properly the most selfless person on the planet. However, her only flaw is that she's very loud. I bring that up because when my wife and everyone with her pulls up, you can hear her maid of honor and the distance between us is large. I perk up and get ready when my brother, who is still standing by the door, says, "Op, imago have a smoke and explore the park," and I tell him we just heard them pull up. No. He tries arguing with me, but finally just shuts up and gives me dirty looks for the rest of 4 days. The place is huge and maze-like. The other guests show up, everyone gets their seats. We didn't care who sat where. We start the wedding and I see my soon-to-be wife as a bride come around the corner. My heart stops and I realize that this is the best moment in my life. Everyone else apparently knew what I was thinking because I had a smile that went from ear to ear. Honestly, the 2 seconds of her coming around the corner made all my stress vanish. My wife looked at me and gave me a huge smile as well. Seeing her walk down the aisle is a memory I replay in my head all the time. Sorry for the sappy bit. Wedding goes great. We do our vows. I can hear my best man behind me crying like his mom just died. After the ceremony, my mother is back into Italian tradition mode. It's Italian tradition for the mother to have a photo with the groom. It's Italian tradition for the mother to XYZ. If I were to type out everything that was Italian tradition, no one would read this. Later when we got our photos back, my mother had this scowl in her face and the entire time. There's one that's my favorite because it's during the whole do you take op to be part, and she has this look of like pure disgust and hatred. It's great. So we get back to the resort. We have our reception. I think that's what it's called. I'm just an idiot and forget. My mother tries to start it out by saying it's Italian tradition for the mother of the groom to do 3 speeches. My best man wasn't having that and put his foot down on who does a speech. He kicked ass at keeping her insanity in control during the week. Everyone does their speeches. My now in-laws do this and hand us a card. In it says when we get home, we will give you $1,000 as a wedding present. Awesome. My mother tried a few more Italian traditions. One was about her cutting the cake. Several were about her, and various photos with people. The cap to the night after dinner, my mother walks up to me and my now wife and says to her, "How much did your parents give you?" She was like, "How?" And my mother goes, "Well, it's Italian tradition for the groom's parents to give double of the bride's parents." We paused in confusion and told her they haven't given us anything yet, but they will give us $1,000 when we get home. My mother goes, "Good, I'll give you $3,000 then." We were like, "K spoilers." My mother never gave us a single penny. It's been 4 years since our wedding, and my mother tells people that she paid for everything: the wedding, my suit, my wife's dress. Her grandma with dementia bought it for her, so that really pisses off my wife. All 17, counting my wife and me, people's effort, hotel, wedding ceremony, and so much more. The only thing she paid for was her and my brother trip, and the only reason my brother came was because it was a free vacation for him. And I'll end it with this fun fact. I'm half Italian, but I've never once in my life done anything Italian or have acknowledged my Italian half. My wife and I also don't care about tradition. She's Polish, I'm half Italian, half Irish. We got married in a Christian Bahamian church. What's also funny is my mother refuses to call my wife her name. She just says your wife in a snide tone. "How are you?" and "your wife" kind of thing. So yeah, that's my Italian tradition wedding. And yes, I've cut that toxic woman out of my life. Somebody sounds jealous. You're lucky she didn't come strutting down the aisle during the wedding in a bridal gown like your wife's, or shove the clergy out of the way screaming. It's an Italian tradition for the mother of the groom to officiate over the wedding. Or worse, show up in your wedding bed demanding first dibs on the bride because it's Italian tradition. Actually, she wanted to officiate the wedding and told us so beforehand. She pushed it for several months. That stopped after a fight we had, where I got so angry I ripped up her invitation and kicked down her door. I probably shouldn't have re-invited her, but after my life of being sick and stuff, I stupidly wanted my family there. Also, funny enough, I never attended either of my brother's weddings. My younger one, the one who wanted to walk around the park, got married in his kitchen, in front of his fridge, in a hoodie, and his wife in yoga pants where his officiator for his name wrong 3 times. His name is Jason. My older brother for married in prison during his visiting hours. So they both went way out for this. Reading the part where you saw your wife for the first time had me in full panic. After reading the rest of your mother's stunts, I was more on edge at that part that I have ever been watching any horror movie. I was waiting for you to say your mother jumped out in front of her and made up some other Italian tradition where she ruins that beautiful moment. I'm so relieved that did not occur. Also, bravo for cutting her out of your life. I'm a member of some bad mother-in-law support groups online, and I cannot believe the number of people that excuse toxic behavior from someone because that person is family. These people allow themselves and their spouse and children to continue to be abused by that person, giving little to no consequences. So again, bravo for knowing that you deserve to be treated better and with respect. I'm half Italian as well, and I live in an old Italian neighborhood in Philadelphia. I've been to many Italian weddings and 99% of what your mother was saying was BS. My grandmother was Italian, from Palermo, with all that implies, and lived to be 96 years old, so I've heard every tradition and superstition there is. Mostly what the mother of the groom is supposed to do is sit, smile, and keep her trap shut. It's a pretty male-oriented culture. Here's another one. There's a supposed Italian tradition on Christmas Eve called the Feast of the Seven Fishes that a lot of people do now. Up until about 8 years ago I had never heard it. If it existed, my GM would have done it. I think a couple of restaurants just made it up to get people in the door on Christmas Eve and have a pricks fikes menu. Wow, your brother sounds kinda effed. Yeah. He's kind of a massive piece of shiz. When I was in the hospital at the start of cancer, he bragged to me how the only reason he was visiting me was because my mother paid $500. He would stay for about 30 minutes then leave. One visit, he showed up with his head completely shaved and said he did it by accident. I later found out that he was pretending to have my cancer. Wow, you should cut that piece of shiz out of her life too, you don't deserve that. I haven't spoken to him in a long time. Once I had one of his friends come to me say, I'm really sorry to hear about your brother's cancer. And this was sometime after my 3rd dose of chemotherapy. I was not pleased. I confronted him, and he basically told me to go F myself. Also, before I was diagnosed with cancer, he was pretending to have, and I'm not joking with this, testicular cancer, prostate cancer, and thyroid cancer. Literally for about 6 months. Once I was diagnosed, he never brought that up again. Sounds like your mom was pissed it wasn't her own wedding. Why else would she want to cut the damn cake herself? My mom's been married, and I'm not joking, 9 times that I know of. Wow, that does explain it though. Every wedding she's been to has been her own, so she has zero idea how to be a guest, LMFAO. I'm glad to hear you cut her toxicity out of your life. Perhaps she's suffering from some sort of mental illness, but regardless, life is too short, and love is fleeting and fragile. Enjoy your couple. I totally understand why some people just elope. The only wedding related Italian tradition I've ever heard of is throwing rice at the newlyweds once they get out of the church. Don't know the reason though. But then again, albeit born and raised in Italy by Italian parents, I'm still 19 and unmarried, LMAO. Throwing rice at weddings is something you'll see all over the USA, and I'd never heard of it being an Italian tradition in particular. Thanks for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe for more videos. See you all later.